For 68 years, I carried every burden life threw at me. I worked hard, raised my only daughter alone, and gave her everything I had. On my 68th birthday, I wasn't asking for much. Just love, a little gratitude, maybe a smile. Instead, my daughter looked me in the eye and said the cruelest words a child could say to a parent. "You're nothing but a burden now." She thought her words would break me. But the birthday gift I gave her that night was something she never saw coming. Before we dive in, you're watching True Revenge, where every betrayal meets justice. Subscribe now so you never miss when karma strikes back. You know, birthdays have a way of making you reflect. And that night, sitting at the head of the table with candles glowing on the cake, I didn't just see the number 68. I saw years of sacrifice, years of sleepless nights, years of putting my daughter first. Even when I had nothing left to give myself. When her mother passed away, I was left with a little girl who needed me more than anything. I promised myself that no matter how tough life got, I would never let her feel the absence of love. And I kept that promise. Every school play, every scraped knee, every late-night fever. It was me, just me. I worked long hours at a factory to pay for her education. I turned down promotions that would have kept me away from home just so I could tuck her in every night. And when college came, I took out loans, worked overtime, and skipped meals so she wouldn't have to worry about a single bill. When she got married, I gave her the savings I had left. Not much, but everything to me. I even handed her the deed to the small house her mother and I had built together. I thought I was giving her security. I thought I was giving her love. But as I would soon learn, what I had really given her was power. Power she would later use against me. The birthday celebration started simply enough. My daughter insisted on hosting it at her house. She said, "Dad, you shouldn't stress about anything. Just come, relax, and enjoy." I felt touched. Maybe I thought this was her way of showing appreciation. Her husband greeted me at the door, all smiles, a little too polished. There was always something about him that didn't sit right with me. The way he looked at me as if I were some old relic, a reminder of debts he wished would just disappear. Still, I brushed it off. This was my birthday, and I wasn't going to ruin it with suspicion. The table was set beautifully. Candles flickered. There was roast beef, my favorite dish, and even a bottle of wine they knew I liked. My daughter sat across from me, her smile wide, almost forced. I thought, maybe she really cares. Maybe I was wrong to doubt her. But the truth was waiting, coiled like a snake, ready to strike. After dinner, when the plates were cleared and everyone gathered around the cake, I leaned forward as the candles glowed, waiting for the words every father hopes to hear. "Happy birthday, Dad. We love you." Instead, my daughter took a slow sip of her wine, set the glass down with deliberate care, and said the words that would haunt me forever. "Dad, you're nothing but a burden now." The laughter from the children stopped. Forks froze midair. Even the candles seemed to flicker in hesitation. My ears rang. For a moment, I thought maybe I had misheard. But she didn't stop there. "We've been talking, Dad. It's time you face reality. You've had your life. We can't keep carrying you. You need to move into a retirement home. It's what's best for everyone." Her husband nodded, his lips curling into a smirk, as if this was all his idea from the start. He didn't even look ashamed. I felt the blood drain from my face. My hands trembled as they hovered over the cake knife. 68 years of living, and this was my gift? The room felt colder with every second. I looked at her, my only daughter, and saw no warmth in her eyes. Only calculation. Only dismissal. On my birthday, I whispered. My voice cracked, thin and fragile. She shrugged. "Better you hear it now than later." I swallowed hard. My throat burned. The candles flickered one last time before I blew them out. No wish, no prayer, just darkness. Later that night, I sat in my small bedroom, the one they had let me stay in ever since I'd signed the house over to her after her marriage. The walls that once echoed with family laughter now felt like prison bars. The photographs on the dresser stared back at me. My wife's smile, my daughter as a child, clutching my hand at the beach. All those years of sacrifice. All those nights I skipped dinner. so she could eat. And now, I was nothing more than a burden. The words echoed in my mind until they became poison. I poured myself a drink, though it did little to calm the storm inside me. My chest ached, not from age but from betrayal. How could love turn into this? But as I sat there, the pain slowly sharpened into something else, something harder. For the first time in years, I felt clarity. They thought they could discard me. They thought I had no power left. But what they forgot was simple. I built everything they stand on. Every brick of this house, every dollar in their bank account, every luxury they enjoyed, it all traced back to me. And if they truly believed I was a burden, maybe it was time to show them what life looked like without my support. I rose from the chair slowly, the weight of her words pressing on my chest like a stone. My legs felt heavy, but something inside me pushed forward. I walked down the hallway to the bathroom, shutting the door behind me. The mirror caught me immediately. A 68-year-old man stared back. Gray hair, tired eyes, wrinkles carved from years of labor and sacrifice. But beneath that weariness, I saw something else, the flicker I hadn't recognized in years. Strength. For decades, I carried my family on my back. I worked nights when others slept. I went without so my daughter could have more. I held this family together after her mother died, when grief threatened to pull us apart. And now, she called me a burden. I leaned over the sink, cold water dripping from my hands, and whispered to my reflection, "Not anymore." The man looking back wasn't the broken father who had been humiliated at his own birthday table. He was the man who had built a business from the ground up, the man who had earned every dollar through sweat and blood, the man who had given and who could take it all back. Hours later, I sat at my desk, my old oak desk, scarred from years of use, but still strong. Piles of papers lay scattered across it, bills, bank records, loan agreements. The history of a father's sacrifices, documented in black and white. I ran my finger down the list. Her college tuition, $90,000. Her wedding, $150,000. The down payment on this very house, $200,000. And that didn't include the countless smaller checks, the car she drives, the vacation she brags about, the emergencies she always came running to me for. Every page was a reminder. She didn't build this life. I did. I poured another drink, this time not to drown the pain, but to steady my hand. My pen hovered above a yellow notepad as I began writing. Mortgage co-signed by me. Car loan guaranteed by me. Health insurance still under my policy. Even her phone plan tied to my account. Line after line, the truth became undeniable. Without me, her perfect little world would collapse overnight. I set the pen down, leaned back in my chair, and let the realization sink in. She thought she buried me with her words, but she had no idea what kind of fire she'd just lit. The room was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second pulling me deeper into thought. I stared at the documents scattered across my desk. Numbers, signatures, dates, each one a fragment of my life's work, proof of every sacrifice I'd made for her. I picked up the first stack. Tuition statements. For long years, every semester covered by me. I remember the days she cried in my arms, terrified she wouldn't be able to attend the university of her dreams. Her mother was gone by then, and I promised her I'd step up no matter the cost. So I did. I worked double shifts. I borrowed against my own retirement. I even sold a piece of land that I had dreamed of building on someday. All so she could walk across that graduation stage with pride. I can still see her smile that day, radiant, proud. She hugged me and whispered, "Thank you, Dad. I couldn't have done it without you." Now, years later, those words rang hollow. Did she ever mean them? Or were they just placeholders, empty thanks until she no longer needed me? I dropped the tuition papers back onto the desk. Next stack, wedding expenses. I closed my eyes, remembering that day like it was yesterday. The reception hall glittered with lights. Flowers imported from Italy, a band flown in from New York. Nothing was too much for my little girl. I told the wedding planner, "Make it perfect. Whatever it costs, I'll cover it." And I did, every single cent. I remember the tears in her eyes as she walked down the aisle, the way she clutched my arm before I gave her away. "Daddy, you're my rock," she said. Those words were etched into me, like a brand I wore proudly. And yet tonight, on my birthday, she looked me in the eyes and called me a burden. The memory burned hotter than the scotch in my glass. I turned to the next file. The mortgage. The house she and her husband lived in. The one they decorated like it was their personal palace. All possible because I co-signed. Without me, the bank wouldn't have given them a dime. My signature was the foundation of that home. My years of good credit and sacrifice built those walls. I leaned back in my chair and rubbed my face. So many years of giving, of believing love and loyalty were the natural returns on sacrifice. And now, staring at the documents, I realized the truth. It had been a one-way transaction. I wasn't a father to her anymore. I was a safety net, a wallet, a man she believed had outlived his usefulness. The bitterness rose inside me like bile. I pushed back from the desk and stood, pacing the room. My eyes wandered across the shelves lined with photo albums, family portraits, old keepsakes. I pulled one album down, her high school years. There she was at 16, beaming in a glittering prom dress. I remember the night she begged me for that gown, sobbing that she couldn't go to the dance in anything less. I had nothing to spare that month, but I worked 3 weeks of overtime. My hands blistered from laying bricks, my back aching every night. But when she twirled in that dress, her face glowing with joy, I thought it was worth it. I traced my finger over the photograph. Was it worth it? I whispered to myself. I turned the page. Family vacations, Christmas mornings, her laughter frozen in time. Had it all been real? Or just performances she put on until she no longer needed what I provided? The clock chimed, snapping me back. Midnight. I sat again, steadier now. My anger wasn't wild anymore. It was sharp, focused, like steel cooled and hardened. I picked up my phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. My lawyer. It went to voicemail, as I expected at this hour. My voice was calm, deliberate as I spoke. "Bill, it's Robert. I need to review some financial agreements regarding my daughter. It's urgent. Call me first thing in the morning. No delays." I hung up and sat there for a moment, the silence of the room pressing in. For years, I had been hesitant, too soft when it came to her. But tonight, even my voice sounded different, sharper, steadier. The phone felt heavy in my hand. I wasn't done yet. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the next number. Margaret, my accountant, my most trusted ally during the years I built my career. My thumb hovered for a second, then press call. She answered on the third ring, groggy. "Robert, do you know what time it is?" "I know," I said, my tone firm but not unkind. "Listen carefully. I need a comprehensive review. Every loan, every guarantee, every account that's tied to my name and benefits my daughter or her husband. I want it all on my desk by Friday." She hesitated. "That's a lot of paperwork. Is something wrong?" I let out a slow breath, the anger simmering beneath my calm words. "What's wrong, Margaret, is that I've spent nearly 7 decades giving, and now I'm being treated like I'm disposable. I need to know exactly where I stand." There was a pause. Then her voice softened. "Understood. I'll make it happen." "Thank you," I said, and ended the call. The screen of the phone went black, reflecting my own face back at me. For the first time in years, I didn't see a tired old man staring back. I saw someone with clarity, with purpose. I leaned back in my chair, the leather creaking beneath me. The house was quiet, but inside me, something had awakened. They thought they could strip me of dignity. They thought calling me a burden would break me. But they forgot one thing. I was the architect of their comfort. The reason they lived in that house. The reason their bills got paid. The reason they slept soundly at night, without fear of collectors knocking at their door. And if they wanted to see me as a burden, then I'd show them what it truly meant to live without me. The next morning, I woke before the sun. Sleep had been impossible. My mind replayed the words my daughter had spoken, like broken glass rattling around in my head. You're nothing but a burden now. On my 68th birthday, the one day I thought I'd be surrounded by love, those words had cut me deeper than any blade could. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the steam rising from my coffee. For years, this had been my ritual. Coffee at dawn before heading out to work, before building the empire that paid for everything my daughter ever touched. But today, the taste was bitter. Not because the coffee was different, but because I was different. By 8 o'clock sharp, my phone buzzed. It was Bill, my lawyer. "Robert," he said, his voice brisk, "I got your message. You sound serious." "What happened?" I chuckled, though there was no humor in it. Serious doesn't begin to cover it. Last night, at my own birthday dinner, my only daughter looked me in the eye and told me I was a burden. After everything I've done, after every sacrifice. Can you imagine that? There was silence on the other end. Then Bill spoke carefully. "I'm sorry, Robert. I know how much she means to you. But I take it this call isn't just about emotions. You want action." "Exactly," I said, my tone steady. "I want to review everything I built. Every account, every asset, every trust with her name attached. And if she truly thinks I'm a burden, then she needs to understand what life looks like without me holding the weight." Bill exhaled slowly. "All right, we'll set up a meeting this afternoon. I'll pull the files." "But Robert," his voice dropped lower, "are you sure about this? Once you make this move, there's no going back." I looked out the window at the morning sun, rising stubbornly over the horizon. "She made the choice last night, Bill. I'm just responding to it." By noon, I was sitting in Bill's office, a familiar room filled with the smell of leather-bound books and old paper. His desk was cluttered with files, thick manila folders with my name stamped across the tabs. He adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. "Here's the picture. You funded her mortgage for the past 10 years. The payments all run directly through an account in your name. You also guaranteed her husband's business loan, which means if he defaults, the bank comes after you." I clenched my jaw, my hands folded tightly in my lap. "Go on. There are also the college funds you set up for your grandchildren, still active, still under your control. And then there's the matter of inheritance trust. By law, it doesn't activate until you're passing, but you have the power to adjust beneficiaries, freeze distributions, even dissolve the trust entirely." I sat back, letting the weight of his words settle in the room. For years, I had built safety nets for them, layer upon layer, so they would never struggle as I once did. I thought I was protecting them. Instead, I was enabling their disrespect. Bill leaned closer. "Robert, you hold all the cards. You could pull the mortgage payments tomorrow. You could shift the trust. You could remove your son-in-law's safety net. You could make their world crumble overnight. If that's what you want." My chest tightened, not from fear, but from the sheer reality of it. They thought I was powerless. They thought I was old, tired, irrelevant. They forgot I still held the pen that signed every check they relied on. I nodded slowly. "Prepare the paperwork. We'll make changes. Not everything. Not yet, but enough to remind them of who I am. Enough to remind them that respect is not optional." Bill's lips pressed into a thin line. "Understood. I'll have the documents by tomorrow." Leaving his office, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and strength. The betrayal still stung, but for the first time in years, I wasn't drowning in it. I was standing above it, looking down, deciding what came next. That night, I didn't go to my daughter's house. For the first time in years, I let silence be my answer. No calls, no visits, no checking in. It was a strange kind of freedom, like setting down a heavy suitcase I didn't even realize I had been carrying. Instead, I sat in my study, the room I once used to draw up blueprints, contracts, and plans for future. The shelves were lined with books I'd read decades ago, their spines cracked and faded. In the corner sat an old leather chair where I'd spent sleepless nights worrying about payroll, deadlines, and bills, all so my daughter would never have to. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, the amber liquid catching the glow of the lamp. As I sipped, I thought about everything I had given her, the late nights, the missed chances, the sacrifices no one ever saw. All those years of being the reliable one, the foundation. And now, in her eyes, I was reduced to nothing but a burden. The word echoed in the room, louder than it had been at dinner. Burden. I let it sit with me, let it burn, and then, slowly, I felt something shift. If she truly saw me that way, then perhaps it was time she carried the weight herself. The next morning, I woke with a sense of clarity. The decision wasn't cruel, though I knew she might see it that way. No, it was necessary. The only way to make her understand was to take away the comfort she had always assumed was guaranteed. I called Bill, my lawyer, again. Bill, I said firmly, start the process. Freeze the trust, pull the mortgage payments, and notify the bank about the guarantor withdrawal. There was a pause on the other end. Robert, you're sure? I've never been more sure, I replied. By the end of the week, the first cracks appeared. My daughter called me, her voice light at first, pretending everything was fine. Dad, hi. I just wanted to check in. How are you feeling? Did you get home safe after dinner the other night? I could hear the strain beneath her words. This wasn't concern. This was fear wrapped in small talk. I'm fine, I said simply. Is there something you needed? There was a beat of silence. Then she sighed. It's just the bank called today. Something about the loan papers. They said you'd withdrawn as guarantor. Is that true? Yes, I answered, my tone calm. It is... Her voice rose, sharp with panic. Dad, you can't just do that. Do you know what this means for us? For the business? For the kids? I let her words wash over me. For years, she had leaned on my shoulders without even noticing the strain. Now, she was finally feeling the weight herself. I know exactly what it means, I said quietly. It means you'll have to carry your own burdens now. She was silent. For the first time in her life, my daughter had no ready answer, no quick excuse, no way to twist my words into guilt. The silence between us stretched long and sharp, like glass ready to shatter. Finally, she spoke, her voice lower now. Dad, you can't just walk away from us like this. We need you. I almost laughed, not out of cruelty, but from the bitter irony of it. Hours before, on my 68th birthday, she had looked me in the eye and told me I was a burden. Now, suddenly she needed me. No, I said evenly, what you need is to learn the value of what you've taken for granted all these years. Please, she whispered, her tone trembling. Think about the kids, about everything we've built. I closed my eyes, steady my breath. Everything we've built? No, I had built it with my hands, my sweat, my sacrifices. And somewhere along the way, she had convinced herself it was all hers. Good night, Ashley, I said, ending the call before she could say more. The days that followed were eerily quiet. For years, my phone had been buzzing nonstop. Requests for help, favors, money, reassurance. But now, silence. She didn't call. She didn't visit. Until the letter arrived. It was from the bank. Formal, polite, and cold. A notice of delinquency on her mortgage payment. A reminder of pending foreclosure, if unresolved. I folded the paper neatly and set it aside. It wasn't my burden anymore. A week later, she showed up at my door. No smile this time. No forced warmth. Just desperation painted across her face. Dad, please. She started the moment I opened the door. We're drowning. The house, the bills, the cars. Everything is falling apart without your help. I looked at her, my only daughter, and for the first time, I didn't see the little girl who used to hold my hand on the way to school. I saw a woman who had grown used to leaning on me like a crutch. A woman who had forgotten the meaning of gratitude. You're not drowning, I said firmly. You're just being asked to swim on your own for the first time. Her lip trembled. We never thought it would come to this. You've always taken care of us. That's the problem, I said, my voice steady. I took care of everything. I carried the weight. I paid the bills. I solved every crisis. And in doing so, I created a family that doesn't know how to survive without me. And when I became inconvenient, when I turned 68 and suddenly looked like a burden, you all decided I wasn't welcome. Tears filled her eyes. Dad, we were wrong. Please. We were selfish. We didn't mean it like that. We just thought. You thought I would always be there. I interrupted. You thought no matter how you treated me, I'd keep giving. But life doesn't work that way. She tried to step closer, but I held up my hand. You wanted freedom from me. Now you have it. Her voice cracked. So you're really going to just watch us lose everything? Watch your granddaughter suffer? I turned my gaze away for a moment, my chest tightening. The mention of my granddaughter struck deep, but I had to be strong. I'm not the one making you lose everything. Your choices did that. I simply stopped shielding you from the consequences. She sobbed, but I didn't move. The man she once knew, the father who said yes to everything, who bailed her out time and again, he was gone. What stood before her was a man who had finally remembered his own worth. Dad, she whispered, please, just one more chance. I looked at her, really looked, and I said the words she never expected to hear. This time, the chance is yours to give yourself. Stand up, work, fight, be stronger than this, because I won't rescue you again. And with that, I closed the door. The sound of the door clicking shut echoed in my ears long after I walked back into my quiet house. For years, silence had been my enemy. I used to dread the moments when there was no one to talk to, no footsteps down the hall, no laughter to break the stillness. But that night, silence became my ally. It reminded me that I had finally chosen myself. I sat in my old chair, the one I had repaired a dozen times instead of throwing away, because that's who I was, the man who fixed things, who carried weight, who made broken things work again. But I wasn't going to fix this. Not anymore. I thought about my daughter's face. The tears in her eyes were real. But I had seen those tears before, the kind that came only when her comforts were threatened, never when my pain was exposed. It was always about her survival, her lifestyle, her ease. Never about me. I closed my eyes and whispered into the quiet. Let her learn. Let her grow. Let her finally understand. The following weeks were not easy. She tried calling. Sometimes her voice was angry, sharp, demanding. You can't just abandon me, Dad. You raised me better than this. Other times it was softer, fragile. Please, Dad. I don't know what to do. I'm scared. Each call pulled at me like a rope around my chest. But I didn't answer. I let the phone ring until it went silent. I wasn't deaf to her pain, but I knew if I rescued her again, she'd never stand on her own feet. One evening, I drove by her house. I didn't go inside. I didn't even stop the car. But I saw. The expensive car I bought her husband was gone, likely sold. The manicured lawn had turned wild. The lights inside were dim. Shadows of boxes stacked by the window told me what was happening. They were packing, downsizing, maybe even leaving. For the first time, I felt no anger, only a strange calm, because I knew this was a consequence of choices. Hers, not mine. Then came the letter, handwritten, no envelope, just folded and pushed under my door. Dad, you were right. I thought love meant comfort, that you would always fix what broke. I never saw how heavy your shoulders must have felt, carrying me all these years. I was wrong to call you a burden. You were my anchor. You are my teacher. If you never forgive me, I'll understand. But I want you to know, I'm trying. For the first time in my life, I'm really trying. Your daughter. I sat with that letter in my hands for hours. The words blurred through my tears. A part of me wanted to rush to her, to lift her up, to erase her struggle. But another part of me, the wiser, older part, told me this was not the end. This was the beginning. Weeks later, word reached me that she had taken a job. A simple one, nothing glamorous. Her husband, too. They had moved into a smaller house. For the first time, they were living within their means, not beyond them. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. My revenge was never about money. It was never about taking away. It was about giving her the chance to grow. The cruel words she spoke on my 68th birthday, "You're nothing but a burden," had nearly broken me. But maybe, just maybe, those words had freed me too. And oh, expensive clothes, no glittering jewelry, no air of superiority. Just a plain jacket, worn jeans, and a tired but genuine look in her eyes. She sat quietly on a wooden bench, her hands wrapped around a paper cup of coffee. Her husband was beside her, equally ordinary, equally humbled. I slowed my steps, watching them from a short distance. It was strange. For the first time in years, I didn't feel resentment or anger. Instead, I saw something I had long prayed for, but never imagined I'd witness: growth. She was no longer the entitled woman who looked at me as a bank account, a servant, a man to use and discard. She was just a daughter, stripped of illusions, forced to stand on her own feet. And though part of me longed to sit beside her, to put my arm around her shoulder and say, "It's okay, I'm here," I knew that wasn't the right choice. Not yet. She lifted her head then, as though she felt my presence. Our eyes met. For a second, time froze. No words were spoken. No dramatic reunion. Just a look. Her eyes softened, and slowly, she smiled. Not the forced smile of birthdays or dinners, but a small, fragile smile that carried 1,000 apologies. I gave her a nod, a silent acknowledgement. A truce, perhaps. Then I turned and continued my walk. That night, as I sat in my quiet home, I thought about everything that had happened. The sacrifice, the betrayal, the words that cut deeper than any knife. "You're nothing but a burden." They had nearly destroyed me. But in the end, those words didn't bury me. They released me, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't living for someone else's approval. I wasn't breaking my back to earn love that was conditional, shallow, fleeting. I had given my only daughter the most painful gift a father can give, the gift of responsibility. And in doing so, I had finally given myself something too: freedom. So when people ask me about revenge, I tell them this: revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes revenge is silence. Sometimes it's stepping back and letting someone face the world without your shield. And sometimes that is the greatest justice of all. This was Robert's story. A father betrayed, but never broken. What do you think? Was this true revenge or the hardest kind of love? Let me know in the comments below. And remember, you're watching True Revenge, where every betrayal meets justice. Subscribe now so you never miss when karma strikes back.